Sergio and I have been friends since elementary school. They moved to our town because of their father's transfer in the service. Sergio's father was in the military. It so happened that they lived in the same house with us, and Sergio and I were together all day long. To school together, from school together. Our parents were so used to seeing us together that they cooked meals for both of us, so we took turns visiting Sergio and me. But it was convenient for our parents. They always knew where to find us. It was like that in junior high school, and then of course, we could be anywhere during the day. But at that time, cell phones had already appeared, and if necessary, parents could easily reach us. And if one didn't answer, they would call the other. My parents used to joke about it. Soon we'll be confused whether our son is Sergio or Alejandro. Alejandro, that's me. Anyway, you realized how friendly we were, and suddenly it was all over. Sergio followed in his father's footsteps and went to military school in our city, and I left to go to university in the regional center. At first I missed Sergio a lot, and at first we called each other all the time, but then new friends and other interests appeared, and we began to communicate much less often. But when one of us came to the city where the other was, of course, we would meet. After graduation, Sergio was sent to serve in another city, and I stayed in the regional center, got a job in a scientific institute, a researcher. A year after graduation, I married a classmate with the beautiful name of Aurora. Sergio was not at our wedding, although Aurora and I invited him, as he was traveling on business trips on his military affairs. I had told Aurora so much about him that she knew Sergio as well as I did. And sometimes, when he called and I couldn't answer for some reason, she and Aurora would talk for a long time, and then she would tell me all of Sergio's news. Sergio was still not married. He explained it by the difficulties of the army service, that not every wife would want to be home alone all the time and constantly waiting for her husband from business trips. In addition, the military is constantly moving somewhere, and it is especially difficult to have children in such a situation. There is a saying among the military that if you start your service in the West, you will end it in the East. We have lived with Aurora for 3 years, but we haven't had children yet. We wanted to organize our life first and live for ourselves, and then think about children. And one day after work, Aurora told me the news that in 2 days Sergio would come to our city on a business trip. I was a little surprised that he called Aurora, although at that time, I was always on the phone. I didn't pay much attention to it because I thought that since Aurora was my wife, we had a mutual friend. Aurora and I worked in different places, but after work we usually met and walked around the city. Sometimes we'd go to a cafe so that we wouldn't have to cook at home and give each other some extra time. It is understandable how excited I was about this news. Of course, I wanted to meet my friend. So Aurora and I discussed in advance what we would treat the guest and where we would go together with him. I called Sergio myself to see what his plans were. He upset me a little by saying that he would not have time to go out in the city, but he would like to stay with us. It would give him more time to talk. I told him that of course it would be better to stay with us. I'll introduce him to Aurora, to which he replied with a laugh. Alejandro, we have talked so much with her on the phone over the years that I think I know her as well as you do. Besides, I've seen so many videos and pictures of you that you both seem like family to me. I had no choice but to agree. Aurora, too, was genuinely happy to finally meet my best friend, who I'd been telling her stories about. In general, after several visits to large shopping centers, we filled our fridge with food, understanding that Sergio would come from the countryside, and we had the opportunity to treat him with local treats. Aurora took a week off from her vacation so that she could keep the house in order and prepare gourmet treats for her guest. At home, there was a positive atmosphere of the approaching holiday. I could not call our upcoming meeting otherwise. And so the day came. We expected the guest to arrive in the evening. He said he would get there by cab himself. By the appointed time, Aurora set a gorgeous table, in the center of which stood a bottle of good expensive cognac. Aurora doesn't like cognac, so we bought a bottle of good red wine especially for her. The doorbell rang to announce that our guest had arrived. We went together to meet the guest. I expected Sergio to be in uniform, but he was in civilian clothes. Yes, he's changed a lot since then. The school and the army did their job. He became a slender, athletic man, and he was dressed to the hilt. He smelled of expensive perfume. I was the first to take him into my arms, and we hugged for a few seconds in a manly way, as if measuring our strength. Sergio, it's good to see you. Alejandro, good to see you too. Aurora, nice to meet you. Yes, Sergio, nice to meet you too. Alejandro's friend is my friend. Aurora hugged him and kissed him on the cheek. Aurora took him to the room assigned to him for the duration of his business trip. She showed him where he could hang his things, asked him if he needed anything else, and told him that the table was set, and to come to the table as soon as Sergio was cleaned up. It smells good. Sergio commented, I'll be quick. We left so as not to disturb the guest. I was still smiling, and Aurora was flushed, which was not like her. From which I concluded that Sergio had made a strong impression on her. So you've met my best friend, the one I've told you so much about. Sergio didn't have to wait long because of his military training. In a few minutes we were seated at the table. As always in such cases, we began our conversation with memories from our past lives. Aurora listened to her friends with interest. They were so different, slender, fit, inwardly collected Sergio, and slightly obese, soft, relaxed Alejandro. They seemed to complement each other, and right now Aurora liked them both. She kept her eyes on both of them. At the same time, she almost didn't listen to their conversation. And when Alejandro turned to her, she was confused, not knowing what to say. This made her blush, making her even more embarrassed. But the friends had already taken a little cognac, and Alejandro did not even pay attention to Aurora's confusion. Her glass was full of wine, and she drained it in one breath. After that, the embarrassment and confusion let her go, and she began to participate in the general conversation, laughing and occasionally inserting her own jokes into the conversation. Soon the friends had the feeling that they had never parted, and as if Aurora and Sergio had known each other since those long ago times. Time flew by quickly. At one point, Sergio interrupted the conversation. Guys, thank you so much for the warm welcome, but I have to go to bed. Tomorrow morning, I have to be organized and look my best, so let's all go to our sleeping places. Aurora, thank you very much. Everything was delicious, and I'm glad we finally met. Good night. Aurora had to get up much earlier to prepare breakfast for 3 in advance. It turned out that Sergio had gotten up even earlier than her, and through the half-open door of the room, she could see him exercising. She couldn't help but stare at him, as he was bare-chested and his pumped-up muscles played across his body. Aurora noted that Alejandro doesn't exercise at all, and doesn't exercise his muscles at all. That's why he doesn't have cubes on his body. Everything is covered with fat. She likes Alejandro like that, but still she should tell him that muscles make a man look good. Sergio had finished his exercise, and as he walked past the kitchen to the bathroom, he saw that Aurora was making breakfast and came in to greet her. Aurora couldn't resist. Sergio, do you exercise every day? Or do you just do it once in a while? Of course, every day. On the weekends too. And on weekends. Yeah, I guess it's worth it. You've got such a toned body. It's nice to look at. And Aurora touched him with her hand, ran it over his chest, and cupped his stomach. Fire flared in her body, and she blushed involuntarily. Sergio noticed it, but it felt good to him. They're like relatives, and he didn't pay attention. Aurora was cutting the salad at the same time, and felt her hands trembling. She immediately stopped cutting, and did something else so Sergio wouldn't notice her agitation. Sergio left for the bathroom to take a water treatment, and Aurora was still under the impression. Sergio's half-naked body was still in front of her eyes, and against her better judgment, she wanted to touch it. Butterflies fluttered in the bottom of her stomach, and there was nothing she could do about it. She couldn't, and she didn't want to. After all, she was a living person with normal human desires. If Alejandro didn't care that he should always be attractive to his own wife, that was his problem. Sergio showered and made his way to his room, and Aurora gave him a long look, indulging her fluttering butterflies. It was time for me to get up too. From the voices in the kitchen, I realized that Sergio was already up too. So I didn't stay in bed for the last few minutes as usual, but got up right away. I went into the kitchen, Sergio had already gone to his room, and Aurora was making breakfast. Out of habit, I walked over and gave her a peck on the cheek. When I noticed that she was flushed, I decided that she was nervous about making breakfast so that Sergio wouldn't be late for his business. There didn't seem to be anything to be nervous about, though. The table was already practically set and waiting for us. Aurora only had a few small things to do. Aurora hurried me up, telling me that Sergio would be out of the room soon and that I had to hurry up to have breakfast together. Anyway, in a few minutes we were already sitting at the table. There was no time to talk, so Sergio and I limited ourselves to complimenting Aurora on her breakfast. Then Sergio and I left to go about our business, and Aurora stayed home. As I left the house, I kissed Aurora on the cheek, and she laughed and blushed, but I was amused. I even called Aurora on purpose and joked that due to Sergio's arrival, she had doubled her number of kisses. She laughed into the phone and joked back. Well, don't double what you're doing. I realized that she had said it without thinking on the wave of my joke, but it somehow unpleasantly pricked me in the heart. And then all the episodes of Aurora's embarrassment after Sergio's arrival came back to me. I don't think of myself as jealous, but I was suddenly overwhelmed by an unpleasant feeling that I realized was called jealousy. But I began to reassure myself that Sergio, my best friend, Aurora, my favorite wife, who never gave reason to doubt her fidelity. I managed to quell the unpleasant feeling as I approached work and as a result of switching my thoughts to work. In general, in the office, I entered already in a normal state and noted for myself that successfully coped with stupid thoughts. There was no time to think about all sorts of silly things at work. The working day was coming to an end, and I started to pack up as suddenly I was called by my boss. Inside there was a vague premonition that someone intends to change my plans. And so it was. The chief looked very concerned. Alejandro, our customers have a problem with our program. They just called me. It's a very serious situation. They could be at a great loss if the problem isn't fixed quickly. I can rely only on you because only you have full information about the program configuration and its algorithm, and only you will be able to quickly detect the problem and fix it, or at least minimize the losses. Alejandro, we need to go now. Time, money. We can't risk our reputation like this. Our competitors are just waiting for us to screw up. Valerio, let me go to them in the morning. I have a guest at home. My best friend is here. He's only here on a business trip for a few days. We haven't seen each other for years, and we don't know how long. What's his specialty? He's in the military. Oh, Alejandro, a military man doesn't even have to explain. He knows exactly what's in order and what's necessary. The car's waiting for you. 3 hours there, 3 hours back, you'll have the problem solved in a couple hours. I'm sure of it. It's just one night, and then I'll give you a couple days off. Call home, warn your wife, call your friend that it's urgent, he'll understand. I left the office and called Aurora. She was surprised at my call, because she was already expecting me to come home soon. She sounded worried. Alejandro, what's wrong? I was expecting you to be here any minute. Sergio is already home. We're waiting for you. After I explained the situation to her, it was easy for her to accept. Honey, if the bosses want you to go right now, then go. Especially since they'll give you time off later. I don't doubt you'll be fine. Think about it, you'll only be gone less than 24 hours. Sergio will definitely be here for a few more days, so you're going to have a lot of time to talk. All right, put Sergio on the phone. Sergio, I'm going on a business trip right now. The chief won't take no for an answer. I'm sorry about that. Work is work. But it's less than 24 hours, I won't be long. Alejandro, don't talk to me. If we have to do it, we have to do it. We'll have plenty of time to talk. I was feeling a little nervous, but I had to go. All right, I'll try to solve the problem quickly. It's a long drive. While we're on the road, I'll try to take a nap. The driver's experienced, so I won't need to keep him awake. The chief said that the customers will be waiting for me and are ready to provide assistance. That's it, I'm on my way. I've got all the documentation and I'm off. Sergio was a little upset. He was already anticipating an evening feast and heart-to-heart conversations, memories of the past, and so suddenly the plans were ruined. Though there was Aurora, someone to talk to. Looking at her, you cannot say that she is very upset about Alejandro's business trip, but perhaps she just does not show it. Sergio, let's go to dinner, just the two of us, as it happens. The table was already set, but because of Alejandro's absence, Sergio was not in the same mood. He wanted to talk to Alejandro, but he reassured himself that it was just one night. The only thing that could change his mood now was the cognac, which, as yesterday, stood in the center of the table, and wine for Aurora. Sergio poured her a full glass of wine and himself half a shot of cognac, offered to drink to Alejandro's successful business trip, that he would return soon. Aurora, as yesterday, drained the glass to the bottom, after which she became very talkative and laughing. Sergio kept up an idle conversation for a while, but then cited fatigue and went to bed. Aurora made a displeased face and tried to persuade Sergio to sit up some more, but that didn't stop him. He wished Aurora a good night, retired to his room. Aurora was left alone at the table. She poured herself another glass of wine and began to drink it in small sips, with almost no appetizer. The wine stirred her imagination. She remembered Sergio's naked torso she'd seen that morning and even touched. Butterflies fluttered again in the bottom of her stomach. Her imagination ran wild, and suddenly she had a plan. Cognac and fatigue did their job. Sergio fell asleep almost instantly. At first he dreamed of some confusion, which prevented him from relaxing. And even in his sleep, he tried to chase away the restless thoughts. Though he couldn't understand the meaning of the restlessness. It was just a dream about something very unpleasant. Then suddenly, the unpleasantness recedes, and he begins to dream very vivid pictures, which for some reason make him wary, as if they carry a threat. He suddenly sees a beautiful naked woman who beckons him somewhere. He waits her away. But she appears again and again. And finally, he feels next to him a naked female body. And suddenly he realizes that this is no longer a dream. He opens his eyes and sees Aurora beside him. He jumps off the bed, still not fully realizing what is happening. Aurora laughs and calls him back to bed. Sergio, why are you scared? We're alone. Alejandro probably won't be back until tonight, and he won't know anything. Come here. The dream fades instantly. Sergio's insides boil with anger. Aurora, how can you do this? He's my friend. I would never betray him. Do you realize what you're doing? You want me to trade years of friendship for a few moments with you. What do you take me for? How am I gonna look Alejandro in the eye? I don't know how you're gonna live with it, but I will never do that. I'm calling Alejandro right now. Realizing that the situation is not turning in her favor, Aurora begins to convince Sergio not to call Alejandro. But Sergio quickly gathers his things and leaves the room, returning a few moments later already dressed. Aurora is still trying to talk Sergio out of calling Alejandro, but he doesn't respond to her flaccid pleas. He first dials the number of the cab and places an order for the current time, and then dials Alejandro's number. Aurora realizes that it smells fried. Her inebriated mind is still hoping for something, but with every passing moment, the disaster of her love life is getting closer. A call is heard in the receiver of the phone, and almost instantly Alejandro answers. Sergio, what's wrong? Alejandro, I'm sorry, I probably woke you up, but it's urgent. I didn't wake you up. I didn't even go to bed. I'm on my way back. I've solved the problem, and I'm on my way home now. I'll be there in about 3 hours. So what happened? Alejandro, I'm moving to a hotel. I've booked a cab. It'll be here soon. Sergio, are you offended? I said I won't be long. Alejandro, why would I take offense at you? Think about it. It's different. What's different? Wait, did Aurora say something or something? Yeah, it's about Aurora. Of course it's your business, but I don't want our friendship to be ruined because of her. You mean she's been bothering you? Did she provoke you? Yes, she did. That's why I decided to move into the hotel. So you wouldn't have any doubts about it. I can't see her. It's disgusting. You make me feel bad. I was asleep, and she jumped naked into my bed. I had to run away. There was silence on the phone. Then Alejandro made a noise. Sergio, put her on the phone. I'm going to say something nice to her. Aurora immediately started making excuses. Alejandro, you do not think anything bad. I was just joking, and Sergio took everything seriously. You know I love only you and will never allow myself anything like that. Alejandro interrupted her babble. There was a metallic note in his voice. Shut your mouth and listen to me carefully. I will not repeat myself. I can't stand traitors, neither men nor women. So I'm giving you until tonight to get out of my apartment, along with your things. I'll be back tonight. Anything left in the apartment will end up in the trash. You got it. There will be no talking and no excuses for jokes. I trust Sergio like I trust myself. You don't exist for me anymore. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, give the keys to the apartment to your neighbor, Aunt Eva. Put Sergio on the phone. Sergio, book a hotel room for me too. By the way, get a double room. I'll be home in 3 hours. Call me when you're settled in. Okay, I'm on my way. I got a text that the car had arrived. Sergio took his things, without saying goodbye, left the apartment and slammed the door. He got into a cab, gave the address of the hotel, but asked the driver to stop at a convenience store on the way to buy a bottle of cognac and something to eat. He noticed that the driver looked at him strangely, so Sergio decided to explain. A friend should be back from a business trip in 3 hours. I think he will need cognac. The driver, noticing that the client was very upset about something, decided to keep the conversation going. Something happened? Some kind of trouble? Your order is unusual. At night, usually ordered a cab to the airport or train station. You ordered from your home address to your hotel. Sergio wanted someone to talk to, so he briefly explained what had happened. The driver nodded understandingly and then told his story. I had a similar experience. I listened to you, and I thought it would be useful for your friend to know the outcome of my story, so as not to repeat my mistake. I got married early when I was in my 2nd year of university. I was so in love, it blew my mind. That's why we decided to get married. After university, together they got a job in the same organization. We were a good match, some even invite us, but it didn't work out with the kids. I sent her to the doctor, but she kept postponing the visit, saying that she needed to live a little for herself. 5 years passed after graduating from university. I became a leading specialist at work. They began to send me on business trips. My wife did not object, saying that it promotes career, do not refuse. Once I decided to surprise my wife. When I returned from a business trip, earlier than planned, I did not call her. I decided to make her happy by coming back early. I arrived early in the morning. I opened the door with my key, and I hear some movement, even some fuss in the bedroom. I went into the bedroom, and there was a guest, an employee from our department, only higher in rank than me, though not by much. He is jumping naked, trying to dress quickly, and my wife with her head under the blanket. I wanted to hit him, but I decided not to get my hands dirty. I took him by the scruff of the neck and threw him out of the door, followed by his things. My wife cried out from under the covers. I'm sorry, please. I don't know what happened. It was an accident. I was celebrating a coworker's birthday at work, so I got a little tipsy, and he volunteered to take me out. And then, I don't know, it just happened. I crawled out from under the blanket, tears flowing. I only love you, you know that. It'll never happen again. I'm sorry. I didn't listen to all this. I left the house and went wherever I was going. I was just in a kind of shock. I felt sick to my stomach, and I didn't want to go home. I walked till dark, then I came home. She came at me again, started apologizing. I pushed her away and locked myself in a small room. Didn't sleep a wink till morning. She didn't bother me anymore. In the morning she got ready and went to work, and I realized that everyone at work already knew about my horns, that her boyfriend must have bragged. I decided to quit. Called, said that I feel bad. I'll write a statement later. I think the boss knew about it too, because he immediately agreed without any questions. I decided to work in a cab temporarily, and so far, it's still temporary. And the situation with her was like this. I didn't come home for a month. I agreed to stay with a friend. She started calling me, looking for a meeting with me. She got her mom involved. She convinced me that my wife loved me. In general, after a month, the storm subsided, and I decided, a fool, to believe that it was an accident, that it will not happen again. I was so kind by nature, ready to forgive everyone. I was a dummy. I loved her very much, after all, so many years together, and never once had a reason to break off the relationship or suspected betrayal. So I forgave her, but became more attentive to everything that happens in the house. And after some time, I noticed that her behavior has changed, began in front of the mirror more fidget, and clearly not for me. To go to different salons, beauty, with some girlfriends to meet the need appeared. So I decided to watch her. And one day I saw how she took a cab to the restaurant, and there she met a man who I did not know. I realized that betrayal doesn't end with one betrayal. A traitor is forever. That's how it ended. I live alone now, and to start a family, there is no desire. I can no longer trust anyone. Especially at this job, cab drivers, so much to see the betrayal and treachery that the desire forever discourages. Sergio listened silently, not interrupting. So tell my story to your friend and let him take into account my experience. Although he has his own head on his shoulders, you and I are not his advisors. Well done, you did what a friend would do. I'd be proud of a friend like that. I'll give you my phone number. When you're in town, call me. I'll take you wherever you need to go. By the way, this is the third time we've been around town. Here's the store, and 300 meters away is the hotel. Go buy your friend some medicine, and I'll take you to the hotel. At the hotel, Sergio took a double room, explaining that the second person would arrive later, took a shower to relax a little after all the events of tonight, and Alejandro arrived. It was clear from his look that Sergio had not bought the cognac for nothing. Sergio tried his best to distract his friend, to divert his attention, but he did not succeed, but the cognac did. And although the state of stress simply burned alcohol, the nerves from the cognac still calmed down a little. The sleepless night soon made itself felt, and both friends went to their sleeping places and slept until the evening, having previously turned off their phones. In the evening, when Alejandro turned his phone on, there were many messages about missed calls. Naturally, most of the calls were from Aurora, then from her mother. The meaning of the calls was clear. They probably wanted to convince Alejandro to forgive Aurora, but the more he thought about what had happened, the more he realized there would be no going back. Once a man had betrayed trust, it was forever. When the friends had cleaned themselves up after a long sleep, they decided to go home. Alejandro wanted to make sure that Aurora met his demands. It was unlikely that she would risk her things, which, by the way, she liked to buy herself, sometimes spending a lot of money on such purchases. Alejandro was calm about it, and now just thought that not soon she will meet such a man who will fulfill all her whims, not sparing money for it. At home, Alejandro was in for a surprise. Aurora did not go anywhere, and moreover, did not even think of packing her things. Apparently, she hoped on Alejandro's mild character that he would forgive her. But this behavior of Aurora made Alejandro even more angry. He did not let her say a single word. Silently, he opened the carpenter's closet, raked up the dresses hanging in it, and without saying a word, carried them to the trash. Aurora tried to stop him, but he ignored her, tossed the entire armful of dresses into the dumpster, and walked back. Aurora decided not to retrieve her goodies from the dirty bin. She realized that she could lose other things next. This quickly brought her to her senses. She clung to Alejandro and wailed, "Alejandro, please don't. I understand everything. Can I take everything back to my mom's tomorrow? I give you my word of honor that I'll do it." Sergio was already complaining about her and started to convince Alejandro to give her another chance. "Okay, but only until I get back from work, so that not even your spirit will be here. Otherwise, you've already seen that I'm not kidding, and I'll do the same with your other stuff. And tell your mom not to call me and try to get me to apologize. My decision is final. I'm not going to live with a traitor." Tears streamed from Aurora's eyes. She tried to say something else, but Alejandro turned and walked away from her, signaling that the conversation was over. At this time, Alejandro's cell phone rang. He looked to see who was calling. "Well, just got off the phone. Your mom is calling. Right now, tell her not to call me anymore and that you're moving your stuff to her place tomorrow. Don't even try to get me involved in a conversation with her. I don't want to hear from my mom either. She's the one who raised you to be such a jerk, and I don't want to hear anything more about you or your family. I don't want to be under the same roof with you today. Call a cab right now and go to your mom's. Aurora realized that there was no point in further conversation and mouthed her mother that she would drive over to her place right now. Mom, don't call again. I'll come over and we'll talk. Alejandro doesn't want to talk to you. After that, she called and hailed a cab. Going into the kitchen, Alejandro saw a table set with various dishes. Apparently, Aurora in this way wanted to redeem herself, but it made Alejandro even more angry. Take all the food to your mother, or I'll throw it away right now. Seeing that Aurora was not paying attention to his words, Alejandro took the trash can and started dumping the food from the table into it. Aurora watched silently. Sergio did not interfere in the family squabbles, realizing that Alejandro could not be stopped. And he was boiling inside as he was offended for his friend. Just like that, in one day the family collapsed. Sergio was even more upset that he had provoked this situation by staying at his friend's house for a business trip. At the same time, the thought had crossed Sergio's mind several times that Aurora had decided to cheat very easily. Maybe it was not the first time for her, and that made him even more disgusted. Why is life so complicated? A couple lives together demonstrates mutual love. Partners swear eternal love and fidelity to each other, but in reality, it is worth to appear some provoking situation as love and fidelity go to the background. Perhaps this unreliability of mutual vows and real examples around, and do not give Sergio to have a family. Before these events, Sergio was openly jealous of Alejandro and more than once said that he would not have prevented long ago to have a family. And now he involuntarily had thoughts whether it was worth creating something that sooner or later would collapse anyway. Aurora and Alejandro's family had been a model for Sergio, even the standard of a family. And now this standard has collapsed, leaving in his soul an unpleasant impression and a lot of doubts about the need to create a family. Aurora kept her word and took her things the next day. To persuade Alejandro, she did not try again. Her mother, after listening to Aurora's story, said that she was ashamed of her daughter's behavior in front of Sasha and would not try to influence Alejandro's decision. Alejandro and Aurora filed for divorce, and their paths never crossed again. Alejandro categorically rejected serious relationships. He was absorbed in his favorite work and strived for career growth. Communication with women was sporadic, usually without mutual obligations. Sergio left for his city after a few days. This business trip left negative impressions in his soul, and for several more years he gave up the idea of having a family. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.